On April 26, 1986, the time will be 1:23 a.m. In a quiet corner of the Soviet Union, the world changed forever. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant suffered a catastrophic explosion that shook not only the ground beneath Prayat, but the very foundation of the human trust in science, safety, and secrecy. Yes, everyone, welcome to Silent Room, the night of the explosion. The disaster began during a routine safety test. Operators attempted to simulate a power outage to ensure the reactor could keep running cooling pumps, but a mix of poor in design and human error turned the test into a nightmare. At 1:23 a.m., the reactor power surged out of control. Two explosions tore apart reactor 4. The 1,000-ton steel blade was hurled aside like a toy, flames shoot in the night sky. Radioactive graphite blocks glowing with the heat scattered across the plant. The men who rushed into the fire that night became the first victims of radiation. They had no protective suits, no knowledge of what awaited them. Their bravery would save millions, but cost them everything. The city, in the shadow of death, only 3 kilometers away, the city of Prayat slept. Nearly 50,000 peoples, engineers, workers, families. That morning, they woke to an ordinary Saturday. Children played in the parks, weddings took place, radiation levels, however, were already thousands of times above normal. But officials remained silent. No evacuation was ordered for 36 hours. The Soviet Union instincts was crazy. Contaminant of information mattered more than contaminant of radiation. Official Soviet Union announcement. There has been an accident at the Chernobyl power plant. Measures are being taken to eliminate the consequences. There is no cause for consent. By the way, finally, the buses rolled into Pripyat. It was too late for many. Families were told they would be gone for only for 3 days. Actually, 3 days. Few would ever return. The sacrifice of the liquidators. As the reactor burned, radioactive smoke poured into the sky. The Soviet Union mobilized over 600,000 men, soldiers, miners, and engineers, known as the liquidators. Their mission contained the uncontainable. They dropped sand, lead, and boron from helicopter to smooth out the fire. Later, miners tunneled beneath the reactor built a cooling system. Most would play their hell, some with their lives. Soviet military reports. Comrades, it's our duty to liquidate the consequences of this accident. The motherland expects your sacrifice. The invisible enemy. The Soviet government tried to hide the truth, but radiation cannot be hidden. Within a days, nuclear monitoring station in Sweden detected abnormal levels. The world demanded answers. The explosion released 400 times more radiation than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Radioactive iodine and cesium spread across Europe, contaminating food, soil, and water. A Swedish scientist quote, "We realized the radiation was not local, it had come from the Soviet Union." That is how the truth of Chernobyl reached the world. The human cost. In the days after, 2 workers died instantly. Within weeks, 28 firefighters and the plant's staff succumbed to acute radiation sickness. Thousands more would face cancers, thyroid diseases, and illness for decades. A firefighter's wife, his body was swollen and his skin cracked. They said I shouldn't touch him, but I stayed. He was glowing with radiation, but he was still my husband. In total, over 300,000 people were evacuated from Chernobyl and its surroundings. An entire population uprooted, leaving behind ghost towns frozen in time. The legacy. The Chernobyl exclusion zone covers over 2,600 square kilometers, a radioactive scar on the earth. Nature has written wolves, elk, and wild horses roam freely, but the human presence is gone. A quote from an evacuated resident. They left our home with only one suitcase. Even now, I dream of Pripyat, the city that was taken from us. Chernobyl forced the world to confront the dangers of the nuclear power. New safety protocols were written. The reactor was sealed beneath a massive sarcophagus, later replaced by a giant steel shelter in 2016. Nikolai Kopelachek, Soviet leader, 1990. The Chernobyl disaster, more than a pestistica, was possibly the real cause of the collapse of the Soviet Union. Conclusion. Chernobyl was not just a Soviet tragedy, it was a human one. A story of courage and secrecy, a sacrifice and denial. A story of a city silenced forever and of lessons humanity never forget. This is Style and Truth, and this was the story of Chernobyl 1986. Chernobyl was a warning, a story written not in books but in lives lost, in cities abandoned, in futures stolen. We remember, so we do not repeat. This is Silent Truth, where history speaks and silence remembers. Bye.